Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. We're doing Maseches Orlah, Perek Aleph, Mishnayos Dal and Hey, the daily double. Every day you get double. 2 Mishnayos, like Jeopardy. Familiar with Jeopardy. Dal, Mishnah Dal, Ilan Shanekar V'Nishtayir Bo Shoresh, a tree which is uprooted and there is a shoresh, meaning there's a root which is left in the ground. Potter, it's exempt from Orlah. Like we said yesterday in Mishnah Gimel, that if most of the dirt around it gets removed and it's still able to survive, somehow it's Potter from Orlah. You can eat the fruit of the first 3 years. V'kamiyeh hashorish, how big, how wide does the root still have to be? When you sew pants or you sew a shirt, there's a hem. When you have the hem, which is folded over, to be able to extend the clothing if you wanted to. So that width on a normal shirt, a normal pair of pants, is the same width as the shorish, because that's basically what it's able to live on, and then it's considered potter and orla. If it's bigger than that, maybe it would be chayav in orla. Hey, ilan shenekar ubo breicha hu chayav mimeno. Let's say you have a tree which is uprooted. Ubo breicha. Now, havracha means basically that I take one of the roots out of the ground, an existing tree, fruit tree, and I take the root and I extend it. The roots can be pretty long underneath the ground. I take it out of the ground and I put it to a different place, I don't know, a couple of meters, a couple of feet away, in order that another tree should grow. So normally it's chayav and orla. When you're a markiv or mavrich harkavas, you graft the tree, basically you extend the branches to a different tree so they have a mixed fruit. So it got uprooted. So if it gets uprooted, the tree, so once the tree is uprooted, the original tree is uprooted, so you made a breicha, you made an extension to another tree, the second tree is growing, and then you uprooted the first tree, right? So the first tree is, right, technically out of its place, so it's no chiyav and orla. However, since it's getting yanika, it's getting its sustenance from the second tree, right, the extension, chazraz kena liyos kabreicha, meaning when the second tree is strong enough to provide sustenance to the first tree, which is now uprooted, right? So then you start at that point, when it's strong enough to sustain the first tree, then you start counting orla. That's the point. You start counting 30 years for the original tree. Right? So if he does this repeatedly, right, keeps on taking a root from each of the new trees, right? You always start counting for the tree from the time that it was uprooted from the ground, and now it's able to gain sustenance from the second or third tree. Sipok hagfanim is sipok al-gabi sipok. Sipok hagfanim is talking about harkava, where you're grafting trees, right? Or you graft from one tree to a third tree. Afal pi she'hrichan ba'aretz mutter. When you graft trees, it's going to be mutter. The reason being, that it's still considered part of the first tree. So it's not considered part of the first tree. So it's not its own tree, right? When you're grafting from one tree to another tree, right? So it's still the first tree. So the second tree that's grafted, the first tree is chayav and orla. The second tree that was grafted from it is not chayav and orla, even though the Mishnah says later, if you graft trees, you're chayav and orla. That's when I remove something on the first tree and I detach from the first tree, I put it in the second tree. But if the first tree is still remaining in place, so all the chiyas, all the sustenance comes from the first tree, and then it's not chayav and orla, as opposed to havracha, when it comes to taking a root and making a new tree, so then it's growing, the second one is growing from the ground, so therefore you have orla by both trees. Right, Meir Omer Makom Shekocha Yafe Mutter, Makom Shekocha Ra Aser. Right, Meir says, he says, if the main sustenance is coming when you graft it from the first tree, so then the second one is potter in orla. If, however, it's not such a strong graft, meaning that most of the sustenance is coming from the second tree, which is grafted with branches of the first tree, so then it would be orla. We don't pass the grammar. Again, if you have a breicha, right, that became detached from the original tree, brecha, havracha, again, where you take the root and you plant it in a new place. So now it became detached from the first tree. So now, once it became detached, now you start counting Orlah. But let's say, but already by the time you already detached, it was full of fruits, right? So the fruits grew beheter. They grew beheter. The first 3 years of fruit grew beheter in the second tree. So Hosif Ma'asayim Aser, if you let it keep on growing, right? Whatever grows now, right? You start counting Orlah. So if the fruits grew to the point where there's the new growth is less than 1/200th, 1/200th or less, so then 1/200th is an Isser by Orlah would Asher the entire fruit. However, if it only grew a little, it's less than 1/200th of the new growth, so then the whole fruit is mutter. Orlah is 1 in 200. We'll discuss this more going forward. Hope you enjoyed today's share. Stay tuned for Iyam Yitzion when we discuss Mishnah Dalet in more depth.